I just have a bottom line question for you. Yes or no, do you believe voters have a right to see your tax returns before they make a final decision?
I don't think they do.
Donald Trump is saying that he has been audited almost every year by the IRS. Would somebody be audited every year? He says it's going back almost every year of the Obama administration.
Well, as you know, we can't talk about individual cases. But it would be rare for anyone to be audited every year. Usually when there's an audit and it's cleared up, if there are no other issues, it's a number of years, 2 or 3 at least, before you hear from us again, unless something in your next return pops up. But as a matter of just formal auditing, it would be rare.
He's not going to release his tax returns while he's being audited. Is there something from the IRS that forbids him from releasing his tax returns?
Well, again, with my caveat that I can't talk about individual cases, the taxpayer controls his returns. There's nothing in an IRS audit process generally that would keep you from sharing that information any way you wanted to.
Okay, so then what do you make of his claim that he needs the audit to be cleared up?
We stress that we're in tax administration, and so we have no stake in any of the primaries going on, and whatever the comments are being made by candidates. As I say, from our standpoint, if you're being audited and you want to do something else, share that information with your returns, you can do that.
Well, one of the other things he said is that he thinks maybe he's being audited because he's a strong Christian. What is that a reason why the IRS would audit someone? What are the reasons why those things that would pop up that would trigger an audit?
Yeah. That's something that would never cause you to be audited. We've tried to make clear, certainly since I've been commissioner, that we don't care who you are, who you voted for, what party you belong to, whether you go to church or don't go to church. If you hear from us in response to an inquiry, it is about something in your tax return. And if somebody else had that same issue in their return, they'd hear from us as well with regard to limited resources, of course. But it would never be a case that you would be audited because of any religious persuasion you might have to have.
Welcome back to the Kaiser Report. Time now to go to Francine McKenna. She is the transparency reporter for Market Watch. Francine, welcome to the Kaiser Report.
Thanks for having me.
All righty. Francine, let's talk politics. You've written about what Donald Trump's tax returns might show. Tell us about that.
Well, I wrote about it a while back before he started having to deny that he was going to release them every week, it seems like. I think that based on his real estate investments, we're going to see losses year after year. And that's going to be really hard to explain to the less sophisticated reader. Why does a successful guy like Donald Trump have losses? Because tax losses are not regular losses. And he's going to have a hard time explaining why there's always negative numbers in the real estate. Plus, all of his overseas royalty and licensing stuff, I think that all that income is being kept overseas. That's why you have such a disparity between what's showing in his financial disclosures and what people think, you know, and what he's saying are his income and his assets. It's very hard to match it all up because I think that income's not coming back to the United States and he's probably not paying tax on it.
Okay, so in terms of losses, you have a company like Jeff Bezos over there at Amazon who manufactures losses for years and then you have Apple Computer, which is keeping cash offshore for years, huge tax liability. So what he's doing as a billionaire and a businessman is mimicked by other big corporations. There's nothing unusual about it. Losses are a way not to pay taxes. Corporations don't like to pay taxes. Amazon doesn't like to pay taxes. Jeff Bezos says he's against taxes. He doesn't like to pay taxes. So this is simply a business. Is there a perception problem? Because this clearly it's not unusual.
Well, real estate is something most people go in because they want to generate tax losses because they want to offset income from somewhere else. He has income from other places that the real estate works really well probably to offset. Jeff Bezos, he only reports income when he has a tax loss carry forward that he needs to use because it's going to expire, and I've reported on that, and that's been what's happened. So no, it's not unusual. Taxes is one thing. What people report for regular profits on their financial statements is something else. The thing is it's really hard to explain to the average reader, what does this mean? Why does he have all these negatives?
You have an enormous level of financial illiteracy in America, so it's hard to really explain how business is done. Now, to be fair and balanced, What will an IRS audit of the Clinton Foundation show, and what does $600,000 for 3 speeches to Goldman Sachs tell us?
Well, I get a lot of people asking me, why don't you focus as much on Clinton Foundation as you do on Trump's taxes? The thing about the Clinton Foundation is it's actually, there's tax returns available. You can look at their tax returns and you can make that determination for yourself. The key is whether anybody's really, truly, significantly analyzed that. I think you might see, as people have reported, they're paying a lot of people, a lot of controversial figures, a lot of countries they're doing business with, etc. I've been also a very big proponent of the fact that she should release the speeches. I don't think we're going to see much surprising there. She's probably really, really nice to them when she speaks to them and gets that kind of money for the speeches. But it would be nice to see exactly what she said, and certainly journalists will just be all over that if it actually happens.
Let's talk a little bit about HSBC, huge bank over there in the UK, and Eric Holder. Over the summer, new information has emerged about why and then attorney Eric Holder refused to prosecute HSBC for money laundering. Tell us about this.
Well, HSBC has had a lot of different issues, and money laundering was the one, if you remember, they were the ones that had the Mexican branch. People were bringing in bricks of money, and they had actually changed the height of the window so that people could fit the bricks of money, the bricks of cash in through the window. And HSBC was just, you know, had so many different things that they could have went after, and they decided not to. And it was the classic excuse that they used for the crisis to not go after or not deal heavily with any of the banks that were doing all of the things we know now they were doing in terms of mortgage fraud, et cetera. They said safety and soundness. You can't go after a big giant bank because we don't know what's going to happen if we actually had a criminal conviction against a bank. We know what's going to happen, though, because they have had criminal convictions against banks, and banks like Deutsche Bank and others that have been criminally convicted for tax fraud, et cetera, are still standing.
Right, so yeah, financial collapse versus political collapse. So during the 2008 crisis, the administration in Washington, to avoid a financial collapse, gave huge banks in America, and this was repeated around the world, subsidies to the tune of trillions of dollars so that they wouldn't fail. They were allowed to bypass the law. No law applied to them, again, so that they wouldn't have to fail. And the thinking was that we're going to save the system. However, now, 8 years later, the political system's in complete chaos. The economy looks to be in meltdown, and you've got a rogue candidate, Donald Trump, on the rise, who is reaching out to the disenfranchised, the disaffected, and we're seeing a repeat of the Brexit formula we saw in the UK, where given a chance, those who have been cut out of the wealth will fight back and vote, even though it may encourage some kind of chaos. So the question is that the bailout of 2008, all it did was defer a crisis.
Absolutely.